Good morning, guys. Welcome back. Again, now we're going to learn today is find the square roots of a perfect square root, solve equations with the square and the cube roots. So that's what we will be learning today. And this is the Common Core Standards 8EE2. The vocabulary you're looking into this lesson: square root, perfect square, radical sign, cube root, perfect cube. What's a square root? Square root is basically the symbol. Let's say, for example, 5 square, it's 5 times 5, it's 25. So 5 is a square root of 25. Also, the symbol for the radical sign, we use this square root. This is called a radical sign. It looks like this. And the cube root, we use that one, but we put a 3 in there. It's a cube root sign. And the perfect square means it's like a 25 is a perfect square because 5 times 5 gives you 25. So that's a perfect square. Same thing with a perfect cube, like the 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. It's a perfect cube. We're going to learn more about this. Let's do some problems to understand how to find the square root. Let's say finding the square root of 64. The 64 I can write which is 8 times 8. So the 64 is a product of two equal numbers, which is 8 times 8. So the square root of 64 is going to be 8. You can write it this one, 8 times 8. So one of them is 8. So square root of 64, it's 8. Or basically you're looking at what times what gives me that number inside the radical sign. So that's why you're looking in these questions. Let's look into another example, square root 225. So now I'm looking 225. What two numbers with two same numbers you multiply, get it to 25. So obviously I can say that it's a 15 because 15 times 15 is 225. So my square root of 225 is going to be one of the 15s. So that's it. Now let's look into another example. Find the square root plus or minus radical, or you can say square root 1.21. So 1.21, basically it's a multiplication of 1.1 times 1.1. So I can write this one, square root 1.1 times 1.1 gives me 1.21. So the square root of 1.21 is plus or minus 1.1. That's it. Let's look at another example with the radical 25 over 36. So I can write this one, 25. Obviously you know it, 5 times 5 is 25, and 36 is 6 times 6 is 36. So I can write this one, 5 times 5, it's 25, and then 6 times 6 is 20, and 36. So I can get the 1 5 up there, and then 1 6 up here, so I can write it. The answer is negative 5 over 6. So basically square root is what two same numbers gives that number there. So that's why you're looking. Now look at another example. In this example, really important, it's a radical sign and a negative inside. So I want you to really careful whenever you have a radical sign and the negative number inside. So for example, if you look at it, negative radical 16, what two numbers makes negative 16? If I look at it 4 times 4, that gives me 16. But if I take a negative 4 times a negative 4, which is both of them are the same numbers, it also a positive 16. So no matter what I take, I cannot get a negative 16 so equals to same two numbers. So whenever you see a radical sign, a negative number inside, you always write it down, not possible, or you can say it's no real square root. So its answer is no real square root. The reason behind, I cannot get it to same number, multiply them and get it a negative 16. Or it could be any number inside the radical. Never. It's not possible. But in this case, if you look at this one, the negative is outside the radical sign, so it is possible. But if the negative is inside the radical, no real square roots. Please remember this, it's really important. Now let's look into the similar example. I see a radical negative 81. As soon as I see the negative inside the radical sign, you simply write a no real square root. Okay, so you don't need to think too much because it's underneath this negative under the radical sign. It is not possible. Even if you put it in the calculator, you put a radical sign and put a -1, the calculator is going to give you an error. Try another problem. It says t squared equals 169. Check your solutions. So t squared, a letter square, a letter times letter, or a number times number gives you 169. So when you write this one, you can see it like obviously t squared equals 169. I can write it as t equal square root 169. Or simply you can think of what two numbers gives 169 with same numbers. So obviously you know it, 13 times 13, it's 169. Or basically you can say it, oh no, I can take -13 times -13, it's still negative times negative is positive, so it's 169. So your answer could be plus 13 or it could be -13. So your answer is t is 13 and -13. As we checked right here, -13 times -13 is 169, and also 13 times 13, it's also 169. So t is 13 and positive 13 and -13. The next topic on this lesson, it's a cube root. And this cube root is basically a cube root of a number is one of the three equal factors. So in the square root, we look for the two of them, but in the cube roots, we have to look for the three equal factors. So for example, I can say it's 8. 8 I can write 2 times 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8. So the 8 is a cube number, and we can find the cube root, which becomes one of the 2's. Now, let's look into this question. Find the cube root of 125. So you read this one. You see the little 3 inside there? So that's called cube root. Cube root of 125. So I'm going to find out 125. What three equal factors makes 125? So obviously, this I can break it down. 5 times 25. I can break it down 5 times 5. So basically 125 I can write 5 times 5 times 5. So you see that three equal factors makes 125. So my answer for this one is just one of the 5's. So that's the answer for this. Let's look into a similar example, cube root 27. So now I'm finding 27. What three numbers, three equal factors gives me 27? So I can write it, 27 is 3 times 9. 9 I can write as 3 times 3. So obviously, cube root of 27, 27 I can write 3 times 3 times 3. So I'm going to take one of the factors as out. This answer is 3. That's it, simple one. Let's pay close attention to this question. It's a cube root of -27. If you remember in the last section, cube root or square root of negative number, there is no real root. But cube root, yes, we have a cube root for the -27. The reason behind 27, I can write it this way. -3 times -3 times -3. The reason behind is negative times negative is positive. Positive times negative is negative. So -27 is possible when you have a cube root. So my answer is going to be one of the cube root, or the one of the factor, which is -3. So cube root of -27 is -3. Let's look into the last question of this lesson. Dylan has a planter that shapes as a cube that holds 8 cubic feet potting soil. So solve the equation for the side length of the container. So you have a s cube, it's 8, S cubed means you can write it simply, it's a cube root of 8. So what 3 factors gives you 8? So I can definitely break it down. 2 times 4, and then I can break that one as 2 times 2. So you have cube root of 8, I can write it 2 times 2 times 2. Obviously, your S is going to be one of the 2's, which is 2. So 2 feet is each side of the container. So 2 feet, side of the container. So if you want to check it, 2 times 2 times 2 gives you 8. So that's basically the side of the container. That's 8. Again, guys, we miss you again, and please make sure you comment below the video so that way you can get extra point, and also subscribe to the video so you can get a notification right away. Please be safe and healthy. Bye. Again, I'll send you the next lesson in a few minutes.
Bye.